with that, I am pleased to hand it over to Lindsey.
Thanks, Carla. Okay. So today's talk, we're going to be talking about finding your niche for your markets. We're going to cover the 4 basics of marketing, the 4 Ps, doing a SWOT analysis, evaluating markets, and then I added in setting up a marketing plan, which is part of your business, should be part of your business plan. And I'll go into a little bit of why you want to have a business plan and a marketing plan when we get to those slides. So this is a picture of my farm. We grow lavender, sunflowers, zinnias, grapes. We do U-Pick, bridal showers, weddings. We have a little farm stand, and I'm always trying to figure out how to, on my farm specifically, of how to diversify the farm, but making it something that I can actually handle. I work full-time for Cornell Cooperative Extension. I have a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old. I run the farm, so busy. And so I'm always looking at how I'm going to market my products too. So I work for Cornell Cooperative Extensions on a team called Harvest New York. I'm an agricultural business and development specialist. And my background is I have a degree in business marketing, and that's how I've been able to bring in my marketing side into my experience with my farm, but also working for Extension. And these are a picture of my 2 little kids. So to start off, we're going to just go briefly over the 4 Ps of marketing. So the 4 Ps of marketing are price, product, promotion, and place. So when determining our products, it's important to figure out what we're going to be selling our products at and how do we determine our price. So people always ask me, how do you determine your price when it comes down to your products? And it can start from anywhere from looking at other farms in the area, other, either at farms, at the farmers markets, or what people are selling for. But when it really gets down to is determining prices, you need to look at all your fixed and your variable costs. And that includes your time, your seed, your irrigation, the time that you're spending in the field tilling, all the way up to like how you're marketing your product. So it's every single expense that you're putting into your operation to determine your price. And this I think is really important because what you're going to charge for your products, are you going to have a market that you're going to be able to sell those products at? I go to farmers markets all over New York State, and things are all different price, and it's all determined of what the market can actually bear for the customers. And then the important thing that I always like to really push is it's important to make sure when you're determining prices that you're paying yourself. And this might not be that you're taking a paycheck from the farm, but it's the fact that if you're the one who's doing all this work behind it and tomorrow you get hurt, you're going to need to hire somebody. So it's important just to fix that cost into your price so that if something does happen, you're able to pay somebody and not have to dramatically increase your prices to be able to cover your expenses. And so your products. So what are you selling? Are you selling fresh bouquets, dry bouquets, other different flower arrangements? And then making sure that the product that you're selling, it's the right quality of the product to be selling it at that market. And then how much product you have available to sell. And that's going to get down to really determining where you can sell these products, is if you have enough product. And that's really difficult sometimes to determine your first year, is how much product you're going to have available for your market. So I always tell people to start small and then grow over time. And then is the product appropriate for the market? And then is there room for the product in the market? And one of the things that I've been seeing over the number of years is, especially at farmers market, is you'll have a flower farm, you're there at the flower market, but then there's all these other vendors that have flowers in their backyard or a little bit on part of their farm, and then they start bringing the flowers into market. So I think it's really important. Our talk that we're going to talk about evaluate markets is if you're at a market and you're selling your products and then you see other people bringing in, is it going to be something that you're going to want to sit around for on your weekends or weekdays selling at that farmer's market. If you see that all this other product coming in, is important to find another market. And then how are you promoting your products? Is it website, social media, newspaper, word of mouth? And then I am just highlighting some things about things that I always see that are either an issue especially for customers, is customers always want to see that you will have an updated website, that you have your regular hours that you're in operation when you can come pick up those beautiful flower bouquets, making sure you have an address, additional contact information, so an email address, a phone number, just in case they need to get in contact with you and have questions. I feel when it comes down to flower farms, you have the most potential beautiful photos available because of your flowers. So it's, have the most beautiful photos on your website, and then tell your farm story. As we can see, our customers, I feel like, always want to hear a story behind how these flowers are grown, like who you are as a farmer, where you came from, why are you there. So it's important to highlight your farm story. And then if you have a website, making sure that your online store is, you can find that link very easily. And then, other ways to promote your products is social media. So the ones that I always think about are Facebook and Instagram. I know that other people do different types of promotion through TikTok and other, YouTube. So there's a lot of opportunities to promote your farm. And then more places to promote would be the newspapers, paid advertisements, such as newspapers, TV. I always felt like for my farm, word of mouth has been one of the best places, even though social media has been really good for the farm. Word of mouth's important. Different tourism offices around the state also do promotion for farms. Figuring out if there's a local farm promotion program. So in my area, we have Cornell Cooperative Extension of Essex County has a program called Adirondack Harvest, and they do a lot of marketing for the farms in the area. They come out and do videos and take photos. They share any type of social media post that you post to their audience. And then it's important, if you're going to have different events on your farm, like U-Pick, your farm's just going to be open for the season, is getting on event calendars. And event calendars are a great way to usually promote your farm for free. And the event calendars I know that I have personally in my area are the TV, the newspapers, the chamber has an event calendar. So figuring out all the different ways that you could potentially promote your farm. And then this is what we're going to kind of get into our market evaluation place of where are you selling your products, and then who are your customers? Are they retail or for wholesales? And what are your customers looking to purchase? Are they looking to purchase at the farm, or are they looking to purchase at more of a farmer's market? So figuring out what market's going to be the best for you. And so what I want to focus on right now is SWOT. And this is, I'm going to try to ask for a little bit of interaction from the group. Is SWOT is we're looking at your overall business, and you're determining what your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats are. And so you can either unmute yourself, or if you want to put in the chat, on your farm, what do you consider like a strength? And this is what do you do well? How do you separate yourself from competition, your internal resources, and your tangible assets? Does anybody have any type of ideas and examples out there of what you think are strengths in your farm?
For us, I'm Jenny. I'm Holly Hollow Farm, and I'm in Chester County, Pennsylvania.
Hi, Jenny.
And hi, and I follow you on Facebook and Instagram. And I've learned from watching and through this whole course to focus on what I'm good at, and that's natives, which a lot of farms around here don't focus on the native flowers, and then to pick a couple that aren't native that I'm good at, which are the variety of hydrangeas not native to Pennsylvania and peonies. And we do regenerative agriculture. So that has really separated us and has gotten the community to really, it's just a call and ask local governments, can you show us how to do a pollinator garden to offset stuff? And it really makes a difference. And plus my husband's a disabled veteran, so that kind of sets us off in another category for those that want to focus on supporting veteran businesses as well. But it's just amazing how not having to do, like, for example, everybody around here seems to do dahlias. I have a hate relationship with them. They never grow for me. I hate them. So it's like, but by doing natives, it's really taken off. And people, and I educate about soil health and whatnot. And my audience has grown on social media and just people contacting me for help with plants. And then they want to buy stuff and they're always tagging me. So I think that's been a strength, trying to focus on the method of farming and the natives.
Perfect. Nice. Thanks, Jenny. Let's see. Allison just put in the chat, strength of our farm would be our location. We sit on 4.5 acres, but we're located right next to our town park and the nature trail. As a first-year farmer, we are offering a roadside stand. I'm interested in seeing if the location would help us part. That's great. That's a great strength, especially the location. Anybody else have some examples of strengths for the farm? I know on my farm, so one of my strengths is we're would be technically would be known as the second lavender farm in the Adirondack Park, but we're the furthest north. And so we're the only ones in the area. And I'm not going to jump ahead on the other parts of SWOT, but that I feel like that's definitely a strength and my experience with marketing. Rose says a strength for our farm is also location, a beautiful wooded landscape with lots of natural water and scenery. Yes, yep, definitely having a great location is really important, especially for the photographers out there to come photo your farm. Let's see, and then let's see. There's the house we bought came with a heated greenhouse, so I am offering cut flower plugs this year. Yeah, that's great. Being able to diversify your farm too, from just growing the flowers to be able to offering the plugs. Okay. Let's go on to like weaknesses. So this is where the aspects of where your business is lacking. Your competition does better, limited resources. So I'll give an example on my farm. One of my weaknesses would probably be the fact that I only have so much time available to be able to do additional like workshops and programmings and being able to expand the farm. So I'm only able to focus in on like lavender, sunflowers, the zinnias and the grapes, and basically the farm stand products, and I can't expand anymore. I'm at capacity when it comes down to it. Anybody have some weaknesses on their farm?
Ours would be the same as you, time, because I'm not yet at the point where the income, I still pet sit and farm sit, and just the resources, money, having the money to do, because we have 25 acres.
Yeah.
And so getting that all established. And with our first year we started, Hurricane Ida came through here. We got 10 inches of rain and it wiped out, the 3 acres I had done. So that's kind of a weakness, because when Mother Nature decides to be finicky, it just takes everything out. So
Perfect. Anybody else have some weaknesses that they would like to share? Chat. Let's see, we got shy and putting ourselves out there to sell. Another one was very small staff compared to size of our farm and audience. Our location also is kind of in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Resources and funding is a big one for us, but have to remind myself that slow and steady can work. Definitely, I'll have to say that's exactly how I've done my farm, is slow and steady. And what I've done with my farm is I just can slowly add on with what I have for funding. So I don't get myself into, I have no actual debt on my farm. So I've just slowly increased stuff on the farm when I have the funds available. And then same for me, time and resources to make this a full-time profitable business. So just to mention, like, one of our upcoming workshops is we're going to get into different funding opportunities, because there is funding opportunities for farmers out there, and even for cut flower farmers. So in one of our next workshops, we'll get into more funding availability. And then another weakness was the majority of our property is hillside. I too have a full-time job and 3 kids, so lots of yeah, not a lot of time for things. Okay, so let's mention some opportunities. So this gets down to like your room in your market, your lack of competition, need for products in the area, and unique business. So I think mine's pretty straightforward. Is I was the only, for my farm, it was only lavender farm in the area. I think the closest one would be about 2 hour away. Then there might be one that's 3, and then there's another one that's 3.5. There's the one that's 3.5 is like the second largest lavender planting in North America, up in Quebec. And then so lack of competition. It's a unique business. And then I opened my doors in 2020, so there is definitely a need, and especially still today, of people just wanting to get outside and experience being on a farm. So what are some opportunities for?
our farm has a lot of opportunity simply for the history. Our place is from the original William Penn land grant. So you've got the house, like for photography, the barn and stuff. You're talking, it was built in the 1690s, which separates us, a little bit, because a lot of the other flower farms around here, they do have older homes like 1800s, but not as colonial. So we have been able to do a little more of, like, I make brush fences because that's what the colonial era would have had. So it gives opportunity, and with the natives. But here also, I find opportunities with other flower farmers because everybody works together. It's not like, oh, I don't have that flower, but I don't want Susie to sell it. It's everybody's referring each other. If you have extra plants, you give them, so it's really good that you see such a support system, which I think is an opportunity here where I am.
That's perfect, Jenny. Does anybody else have some opportunities they want to mention? There are quite a few backyard flower farms in my area selling traditional zinnia, sunflowers, Cosmo Market bouquets. But there are a number of high-end florists in the area looking for local grown specialty cut flowers. That's definitely a good opportunity. I'm interested in opening up our fields to photographers, charging per 30 to 60-minute sessions, something extra that doesn't take up as much time, focus on their items. That's perfect. Yeah, that's definitely a great opportunity, is being able to, having photographers come into the property and establishing different additional funds for their operation. So threats, so new competition, changing regulations, and negative business. So I'll just go in for my farm is like new competition. So, there's always going to be a threat for another farm to, get established within the area, within a couple hours away. But I think if somebody's wanting to do what you're doing, you're probably doing something right when it gets down to it. So turning it from a threat into like a positive. And then negative business, there's always a chance that somebody's going to post something out there. Either if you forgot to update your hours for your operation. So, try to think a step ahead and always turn a threat into a positive is my thought about this. So what are some threats people might have? Has anybody seen any, it doesn't have to be your own farm, but like negative business threats that you've seen?
I've seen Wildflower Farm. A friend of ours has it, Lori and Ryan Heehan. They're in Willistown Township, Pennsylvania. You're talking, it's the main line, one of the richest areas in the state and in the East Coast. And they purchased a property and they made it a flower farm. It was horses before, and they have plenty of parking and whatnot. And these neighbors were so miserable with their own lives, they wanted to shut them down. They don't mind Toll Brothers coming in and doing their thing and just putting a mega development, but they do organic farming, and they had to fight with their neighbors and the township to be there. And that is a threat that I have seen some other farmers have to go through, which is sad. Like, who doesn't like flowers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that does happen a lot too with zoning, with farming. So one of the things too, it's important if people are setting up a flower farm or any type of farm, is just to see where you're zoned. If you're in an ag district, is that property going to be available for ag value assessment? And also having the conversation with your local town just to see, sometimes like you might be outside of an ag district and you might not be able to get ag value assessment, but making sure that it's okay with the town to make sure that you're there and get something in writing, so that if you do have neighbors that are like that you can
fight with them.
You're here.
Yeah, and Pennsylvania is good because it has the Right to Farm Act, and the Pennsylvania Department of Ag will come in, and if a government entity tries to shut you down, once it's either you're over 20 acres or you can be under 20 acres, but if you make at least $10,000 in product a year, they can't mess with you. They can't, if you're dumping fertilizer in a creek, they can, but not. And like I tell everybody, and her husband has, my husband and I are sitting on our borough council. So by getting involved and being part of that process, I have found you can minimize that threat because you're coming in as a professional, as somebody who knows more than necessarily your town councils are going to know about farming. So
perfect. Yeah, that's great examples, Jenny. I just saw one of Rose put up opportunities for people to be outside, experience the joy and beauty of natural landscapes, cheer up beautiful local flowers, uniquely arranged. So does anybody have any other threats examples that they want to share?
I do. Hi, my name's Hannah. So basically we sell seeds and tubers and things online, and our policies are very clearly stated on the website, and you have to agree to them at checkout and everything. But one person was very mad, and basically they reported us to the Better Business Bureau. And there's no other kind of reviews for us on the Better Business Bureau. So it just shows the one complaint, even though we worked with her and like came to a conclusion on the situation. But if somebody looks up our business, it'll show that there was the complaint, which we can't really do anything about.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, when it comes down to the public, you know, I'm sorry that happened to you, Hannah. You know, because a lot of time it too happens in social media with one person complaining, and you can offer a way to fix it, like say, come back at another time, I'll offer you pick, and sometimes their personality just won't allow you to do it. So they'll just say, oh, well, it's too late. But if you can always figure out a way to make that person, you know, take down the post, or, you know, change that negative view to a positive one. Oh, were you trying to talk, Allison?
Oh shit, no, sorry.
Oh. No worries.
Sorry, my bad.
No, it's okay. And then we one in the chat, I have experienced people's lack of education to see the value of specialty flowers, thinking they are wild. Yeah. Yeah, so there's definitely, I've noticed on my farm that there's definitely a lack of customer knowledge about what you're trying to do out there, what you're trying to grow, how much time it takes. So, you know, I always feel like it's an opportunity to educate people, but it's a threat because it's going to take your time of trying to educate these individuals on like what you're doing. So. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. And that was great. Thanks everybody for contributing. That was really good conversation. So finding markets and new markets. So this is for people that are starting out to people that already have established farms. And so finding markets and new markets. So it's really important to have a marketing plan, and ideally, because this is going to be part of your business plan, which is you're going to have your marketing plan inside your business plan, ideally you want to have this written down when it comes down to it. But I know that things change, and especially I feel like as flower farmers, you're inventive, you're always coming up with new things. So your short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals are going to potentially change over time, and some are going to change a lot sooner than others. So figuring out what you want to be doing today, and short-term is like your short-term, like today, within the next year. Midterm could be the next 2 to 6 years, and long-term is, you know, what you want to be, where you want your farm to be in like 10 years. But always I tell people to start small and slowly grow over time. If you're new to farming, I always feel like the farmers that I've always interacted with over the years there's the ones that have had a really good first year, and this gets them to just want to expand their operation, and sometimes expand too quickly. Expanding too quickly can also get you in issues with labor, the amount of funding available for projects. So it's really important to start small and grow over time. So I think having, you know, your short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals written down, and then continuously update. And people ask me, how often do you usually update a business plan or marketing plan? And it's usually, you know, when things change, but it could be that you just have time to sit down and do it like once a year. And then when it gets down to you're finding your markets, is market development. So in market retention. So looking at where you're going to develop those markets. So this gets down to when you're meeting with people, you're looking at the different market opportunities that you have out there. Is this going to be a sustainable market for you? And meeting with the people that, if you're going to be selling your product into a store, you're meeting with them and you're talking about your prices, what type of bouquets are you offering? Are you just going to be offering during sunflower season or just lavender season? Or are you going to be able to offer a range of flowers with different flowers that come in throughout the season? And then also when you're developing a market is you provide samples of your products. And, this can be frustrating because you'll be giving out samples to the market and sometimes you don't get anything back. And it's just kind of the cost of doing business, but over time, you will get those funds back. It might not be at the person you gave those flower bouquets to, but it'll be from a different market. And then market retention is, my feeling is that market going to be around and sustainable for you over time. And then when you're determining your markets, like how much quantity are you going to have? So, there's always that chance that you're going to go to a farmer's market and you could sell out within the first hour. And that could be a 4-hour farmer's market. So, determining how much product you're going to be able to sustain for that market. And if you're going to be wholesaling, are you going to have wholesale minimum quantities that you're going to be willing to prepare? Because sometimes it's not worth, if you're going to wholesale to somebody, you're not going to wholesale for 1 bouquet or 2 bouquets. You're going to have, at least a minimum amount that you feel that's your farm sustain over time. It's for for the season, for the price that you're willing to do. And then how are you going to be taking orders? How are you going to process them? Or is it going to be cash? Is it going to be credit card, check? And then is it going to be through a platform, like such as Square, or you have some type of ordering platform that you might have set up for your business? Or I've run across farmers that sometimes they take their orders over text message. And how is that going to work to keep that straight of where these flower bouquets need to go to? So it's really important to figure out like how these different things those in and outs are going to work for your farm. And then your target market. So Carla's going to get like a little bit into customer profiles after I'm done speaking today, but I think it's really important, when it comes down to your customers, is who will buy your product? Is this going to be for retail, for wholesale? Why are they buying my product? Is it just like a specific time of year? Is it just for Valentine's Day? Is it for Mother's Day? Or is it going to be a continuous, weekly sales of bouquets throughout the season? And then what will they pay for your product? And then where do they expect to find your product? Are they expecting just to pick your products up at the farm stand? Are they at the farmer's market? So figuring out what your target market's going to be, what the product is that you're going to be selling, how much they're willing to pay, and where they're going to be buying this. And then, so the next thing we're going to be talking is market evaluation. So which markets to keep, eliminate, and expand on. So just because today you're selling at a farmer's market doesn't mean you need to sell at a farmer's market, the rest of your career when it comes down to farming. And then we're going to talk about like priority markets and second markets. So I always think that when it comes down to when you're looking at markets, there's going to be pros and cons for each market that you're selling at. So I'm just going to like kind of mention some of the pros and cons that I see at selling at each of these. So a community supported agriculture, a CSA, the pro for me as a farmer would be that you're going to be receiving your funds for your planting, for your labor at the beginning of the season. The con could be that, you might not have a good season and you might not be able to sell, you might not have bouquets at certain parts in time. So that could be a con from that. Farmers market, it's a great opportunity to interact with customers, have weekly sales. But the con could be that you have to prepare for that. You have to pack all your stuff. You have to leave the farm. You have to be there for a certain amount of time. U-Pick, people are interacting on your farm. You're getting to know your customers. The customers are seeing what you're doing. The con could be is somebody could be pulling out flowers out of the ground, or the kids could be pulling the flowers out of the ground. I've had that problem before. I've had kids just knock sunflowers down and pull them out of the ground, but the pro was the parents actually picked them all up and paid for them. Wasn't even expecting that. So there's always, sometimes I look at it as a positive that might come from a negative situation. So farm stand, people are coming in and seeing your farm again. Farm stand, you're either going to have to be there for your sales, or you're going to have to do a self-service. And if it's self-service, somebody can walk away with your product. A produce auction, I work with produce auctions in New York State, and I think it's a wonderful place for sales for crops. And there is some cut flowers that are sold at produce auctions that usually the Amish and Mennonite communities are creating those bouquets. It's the positive with a produce auction is that you can concentrate on growing the product. But the negative part is you don't know how much that product's going to sell for. And then there's, I feel like grocery stores and cooperatives, your cooperatives, like restaurants, distributors, I'm going to put those all together. And just since it's like wholesale markets, is the pro is you get to interact with the public less. The con is you don't get to see that where the bouquets of flowers are going to. So it's always, when you're looking at markets, is it kind of hit it on the last slide, but you're looking at either selling directly to customers or you're wholesaling products. And when you're selling directly to customers for crop diversity is, directly to customers, when you're doing like your bouquets, you're usually growing a lot of flowers when it comes down to it. If you're wholesaling, you might just concentrating on selling sunflowers or just, dahlias, just specific crops, and those for certain markets. The direct sales for when it comes down to customer interaction is really usually high. For wholesale, you're only usually interacting with, one or two people at an operation to sell your product. So if you're not somebody who likes the public, you might want to wholesale. If you like people, retail, direct sales probably is the way for you to interact with people. Direct sales, you can get a higher price point. Wholesale, you sometimes don't get as high you're going to get a less of a price point. Direct sales, you're going to usually have lower direct sales, you're going to end up, you're going to have lower volume, and wholesale, you're going to end up having higher volume. And then the cleaning, sorting, packaging, consistency, if you're going to be selling bouquets, they're going to have direct sales, are going to have to be perfectly beautiful, but wholesales is you might be selling your products more in containers. And then when you're looking at actually evaluating your market opportunities, so my coworker, Matt LaRue, came up with this project a couple of years ago with working with farmers down in Tompkins County. So I've been able to take this information that he's put together and relate it to more for cut flower farms. But when it comes down to evaluating market, there's always 6 ways to look at that market channel. So the first is your price and profit. So example is you can sell $500 worth of product in an hour. So this, let's say this is a farmer's market. But your associated cost to sell at that product at that farmer's market is $300 a day. Your sales volume, it's only 1 hour per week. your labor requirements to go to that farmer's market takes you 12 hours to prepare. And then oops, I bottom my screen. And if it rains, no customer comes. And then you have to look at, so that's your risk. So and then your last things are your lifestyles and your preference. So price and profit, associated costs, sales volume, labor requirements, risk, and then your lifestyle preference. Those are like the 6 parts of when you're looking at a market. You know, this is a little like a little too inflated with how much, you know, it's only going to be 1 hour a week. But, you know, it's important to look at your entire inputs, the amount of time, especially like your risk and your lifestyle when it comes to look at your market. So in order to evaluate tools for markets, you can look at doing it over a week or an entire season, which I suggest looking at when you're looking at your markets. It's important to look at both of them, your week and your entire season. So if you're just getting into having a flower farm, you're not going to know how your entire season's going to be until the end of this year. But you can look at, you know, a week's worth of how things are going for you. And you're in a lot of your markets are going to be very different of what you're going to be doing, anywhere from you might be selling to 5 or 6 different markets that are all completely different. In the next couple of slides, I'll give you some examples. So to evaluate those markets, it's important to have like labor logs, your gross sales, your associated costs, your sales volumes, the lifestyle, the risk, and then you want to rank each of those categories of like why are these important to you? So when you're looking at labor logs, and this was a project that my coworker did, and I think it is really helpful for somebody just to look at, you know, your labor. Like you can look at your labor over the entire season, but that doesn't really help you detail like which of those markets you really know how much labor you've put into, unless you've figured out a way to, you know, either in like Excel. I know like you could possibly do it in Square with employees checking in and checking out of their logs, but you really need to figure out where your labor is going to be on these different markets that you're going to be in. So labor logs are great because if it shows up expenses, consistent units, staff and owners can complete the form, and then everyone completes forms. So I put this together from one that's been done for vegetable farms and made it more for flower farms. So labor log, and what I put down for activity was your picking, your picket harvesting, and your making in the bouquets, your travel, your bookkeeping, sales calls, sales times and takeouts. And what you would actually do is ask your employees to fill these logs out when they're doing the work so that they can take and help you keep track of everything. So the blues are the harvesting for the farm. The green is processing, packaging. The orange, I guess yellowish, would be travel and time. And then the red is your sales time. So you ask your employees just to put down their name, the time they've spent, what they're harvesting, the date, and where this product is going to. So it doesn't have to be the same person doing this, and they fill it out each for these different sectors. Then it would give you an idea of how much labor that you're actually doing into your operation. And the reason asking the employees to do it is because you're busy as a farmer doing so much that the employees taking this into their daily tasks. Plus, they're also taking kind of almost ownership that they're participating in decisions in the farm. So then you're basically looking at the data of your profit, your gross sales, your labor, your mileage, your labor hours, your sales volumes, and then you're creating like a ranking of the risk and the lifestyle choices. So this was the example that I wanted to give, is the gross sales volume by channel. So if you're participating as a flower farmer, as a farmer's markets, weddings, a farm store, a CSA, and U-Pick, which I just decided it was putting this together. Let's just do a whole bunch of different options so that you can see of like how you're looking at a sales for this is like for 1 week of sales. And you can see that majorly your gross sales for that week was the weddings. Your CSAs, was your second one. And then your U-Pick was next highest. You can kind of see where your gross sales would be on your farm. And you can see that the farmers markets weren't as much sales. And then if you looked at your farm and you see that the total labor hours, and you see that, oh my goodness, I spent 40 hours on that farm with that U-Pick. The weddings took 8 hours, which US flower farmers know how much time it's going to take you putting together for weddings. And that's time that you probably figure out before even saying how much you're going to be charging for a wedding. So you've got your labor hours, and you can see that U-Pick's the most, the farmers markets, that's the second most amount of time that you're putting in. And then you've got your weddings and the CSA and the farm stores. Like the CSA, you're just there for a couple hours for them to do either the pickup, and then like your farm store might just be that you're opening and closing it each day or so. And so then you compare your labor and your gross sales for your farm. So what I've done is that you can see when it gets down to it is you've got your weddings. That's the most sales that you've got. And your CSAs would be like your second amount of gross sales. And then you can compare to see, like I mentioned before, U-Pick, that takes up a lot of time when it comes down to it. It is 16% of the gross sales for the farm. So you kind of, what you would do from there is look at where all of your profit's going to be. So that is like you're figuring out like your profit, gross sales minus the labor. And you can see from your farm is that your weddings, your CSAs, those are your most profitable. Your farm store is the next, farmer's market, and then the U-Pick, between the amount of sales that you get from that and the amount of time, like that's the least amount. So then you would determine like, what do I want to be doing? And I think what's important to also understand that, are you a flower farmer that's going to be having weddings every single week, or just was this 1 week that it was really good when it came down to it? So if that's the case, that this was just 1 week of your sales, then you're not just going to focus. You might decide to change your markets and just focus on doing more weddings and getting rid of the U-Pick. But those are different decisions you've got to make for your farm, what's going to work. And then I think the most important thing, which I know would be for me, is, of course, about a profit, but the risk and the lifestyle choice. So I just did like for, if this was my farm, what I was consider my risk. So 5 was I considered low risk and 1 was high. And then lifestyle, do you enjoy doing it or don't you doing it? So do you enjoy spending all that time putting together these bouquets for the wedding, putting these installations together? And, maybe it's just the factor that you like seeing the final results and like what's, somebody enjoying it on their wedding day. That might be a lifestyle choice that somebody might like. But it might get down to it. Maybe you don't like doing that and you really like spending time at a farmer's market when it gets down to it. So it's important to take in, when you figure out, the profit and everything, is what you want to do and what you don't want to do on your farm for your markets. So I just did a comparison of the two of them next to each other. If this got down to it, I think that, the weddings would be, you'd want to keep on the farm. The U-Pick is probably something you'd probably want to eliminate and maybe pick up more more weddings over time, try to increase your CSA sales, maybe that farmer's market. You know, you might want to eliminate one of your farmer's market when it gets down to it. So it really gets down to, when you're evaluating your market, is really what your profit is going to be in those lifestyle choices. And one way, you know, and also to look at, instead of this is kind of a week's view of like looking at a market evaluation, but to really help assess your markets and looking at platforms is like Square, QuickBooks, Excel spreadsheets, and there's other different platforms you can look out there. Is you can, I know, for example, is like when I pull up Square for my business, I can see for the year, it actually will pull it up in graphs to see what I've been selling the most of. And I know where, you know, where my markets are specifically for my farm, because I pretty much everything's now, you know, tight between the farm stand and the U-Picks. But you can also take in, you know, make ways in like Excel, QuickBooks, and Squares to identify those different markets, and you can see where your sales are going to be for the season. So the next steps, like when you're evaluating market, is what do I need to do now? Do you need to reduce your markets or add markets? You know, maximize sales and reduce hours, and figure out like what your future labor is going to look like, is things that you want to kind of target. And sometimes, like when you're trying to figure out what your markets are going to be, what your labor is going to be like, you can always make assumptions of what you're going to have for labor in your inventory. And then the big thing is, like, you as a farmer, you have control of what you want to do and don't want to do. And so change is okay, and you want to assess your markets yearly and quarterly. And then, you know, your time is especially important. So just make sure that you always put down the amount of time that you're putting into your farm for your labor. And then make sure that you're always keeping records of what you're doing. And I want to highlight this whole thing when it comes down to priority markets, because I've seen issues, and I have never seen issues when it comes down to flower farms yet, because I feel like with the flower industry that everybody spends a lot of time creating quality flowers, bouquets. But I've seen this in other farming sectors, is the importance of knowing what your first market for your product is and what you're doing with that second market. And this isn't like seconds, but knowing where your priority of your sales are going to be. And the example I'm going to give is, I know individuals that were purchasing a CSA, and they, they provided the farm with the funds in the fall. They expected, in the next summer to have beautiful vegetables that they were picking up at their CSA, and they would go to the farm every week to pick those up. And what they were seeing is when they would go to the farmer's market, and that farm that they were getting their CSA from, the farmer's market's vegetables were at a way better quality than what they were getting out of their CSA. So what was happening is their CSA, they were almost getting seconds of their vegetables. So basically, those individuals did not buy a CSA the next year. So it's important, if you're going to have a CSA, like that would be, important priority when it comes down to it. So I'm just giving like examples of like, CSA to farm store, weddings to U-Pick, farm store to U-Pick. It's just making sure that you, it might be that weddings are your priority and CSA is like your second priority when it comes to the farm, but just making sure that you have, you're not probably, when you say second, it's not that you're providing seconds of cut flowers. That's your second market where things are going to. And then I'm just going to go over just some highlights of setting up a marketing plan. So why do we create a marketing plan? So it's a strategic document of what you're going to be doing on your farm. It helps you focus on where your resources are going to be. It allows you to plan business growth. It allows you to target your markets, and it aligns your marketing efforts with sales goals. It's part of your business plan. And so if you were, if you're ever looking to go get, funds from a bank or investor, they're most likely going to want to see a business plan from you. Plus, if you ever got audited, because sometimes, the IRS might come in and say, well, you're only making this much a year, you're writing all this off, you're almost in the red every single year. They can look at seeing that you actually have a business plan, that you're a legit business, that it's not considered a hobby. So having an actual document is really important to having an established business. So I'm kind of mentioning in the marketing plan, a lot of the same things that you're going to just have in parts of your business plan is your executive summary, a market summary, a SWOT analysis, which we already talked about, your competition, your products and services, your target markets, your market strategies, your budget, pricing, positioning strategy, your market channels, distribution, and promotional strategies. It doesn't have to be that this is like, each of these have to be a page long. They can be a couple sentences, a paragraph. So executive summary is just a description of your business, a summary of your market plan sections, and your goal for marketing plan. So, you could always take whatever your executive summary might be, like your little intro that you have on your website. Market summary is going to include your demographics, your needs, your trends, and your growth. And then we already mentioned our SWOT analysis for today, and everybody did a great job contributing to that. And then competition. So describe your competition. So if you're for me, only lavender farm within at least 2.5 hours. And then product and services, what's your product and services? And then why is that product or service unique? And then for target market and customers, describe industry you're selling to. And then your analysis of your competition is going to kind of be what your competition you included in your SWOT analysis. And then include your ideal customers, which that definitely can sometimes change very quickly of what if you're just starting out, what your ideal customer might be, but who ends up coming to your farm over time. You mentioned already your market strategy. So having those short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals for your farm and how they're going to be approached. And so that how it's going to be approached would be we're putting in kind of like a timeline too, if it's going to be from a year from now, 2 years from now, and potentially for long term, 10 years from now. And then your budget and your financials. So your marketing expenses and examples would be if you're going to use different, if a marketing agency to any type of marketing software, your website, if you're going to be promoting for events, any advertisements that you put out there to the public, and then your pricing and positioning strategies. So making sure, I think this what gets down to what somebody's going to look at over your marketing plan is making sure that you're going to be selling stuff that is, at the correct price point, that it's not too low, not too high. And then finding, so that's finding the correct price points and strategy, increase prices. So I know like when I have gotten phone calls in the past from example from Credit East, when people are trying to buy different operations, like specifically for greenhouse, like a greenhouse operation, you know, they like, you know, agencies like that will look over like in your marketing plan, specifically really what you're going to be, you know, your inputs of what those plants are going to cost to grow it. And then what's that price that you're actually going to be able to get, and making sure that you're going to be able to pay back that loan over time when it comes down to it. And so for marketing channels, you know, where are you going to be marketing your product? And then where you're also going to be selling to. So, you know, having a distribution plan, you know, you're going to be selling through a website, a distributor, a retailer, and then how are those products going to be distributed? Are people going to be picking it up on the farm? Are you mailing it? You know, we've run across some different industries where things get shipped overseas and trucking, but just figuring out what your transportation is going to be for your products. And then your promotional strategy. So what type of like marketing materials you're going to be using, if you're going to be using types of online promotion or offerings. The last thing I have is, so just this resource is a guide to marketing channels. And then, so if we're selling for wholesale and direct sales, so kind of the stuff I was talking about on evaluating your markets is, you could be found in this publication. Okay. Oh, and the other thing I want to mention is we're doing an agritourism workshop series. Is Cornell Cooperative Extension's agritourism program, where team is putting together a monthly workshop from 12 to 1 every single month. And the next one coming up is going to be in regards to agritourism liability insurance. So if you're thinking about having people on your flower farm and having people being there to do U-Pick, or you're going to have different events, this might be a good workshop series for you to attend. Our March ones, but then we have ones on customer service, tax considerations, and a pricing workshop, and then another like a marketing workshop up in July, and then we'll have a one to be released just a little bit later for the rest of the season from August to December. Okay, so what type of questions do people have?
Let's hit Lindsay with those marketing questions. And folks are asking if this is recorded. It is absolutely recorded. We will be posting the recordings on the website and our YouTube page. And I'm going to get you a link to previous talks while you guys are coming up with questions for Lindsay. Don't be shy, or share your experiences. That I say it over and over again, but the flower community is the absolute best for people being willing to share information, both about growing, marketing, experiences, commiserating. So if anybody needs to commiserate, we are here for you. Just keep in mind it is recorded.
So I see there's a question. So there's a farmer entering their second season, very small operation, selling last year by roadside stands. I've had some inquiries to local farmers markets, and they seem saturated with fresh flower vendors. Now looking to other channels. I think that is definitely probably a very common thing at this point, is like a lot of people are selling flowers at the farmers markets, which is interesting because I swear like 8 years ago, it wasn't that that way at all. And now I feel like I go to a farmer's market and there's the flower farm that has all their beautiful flowers, and then all the vegetable people have flowers too, which I feel really bad for the industry that you guys are in, that's happened. I feel like when it comes down to it, is depending on like what you can potentially do is if you can bring people to your farm. One trick that what I like to do is the month of May, like for our farm to basically the end of June, like that's when we're open. The farm starts from May 1st to October 31st. We receive sales on the farm from May to mid-June, a little bit, not much. And then when it comes down to like the U-Pick part, so we have basically U-Pick that's being offered of some type from the end of June till the end of August, and we have continuous sales. Plus we sell a whole bunch of our lavender products and other things in the farm stand. And that's been bringing people to the farm. But if it wasn't for the U-Pick, then people wouldn't be coming to the farm stand when it gets down to it. So if there's a way that you can find markets to find things to bring people to the farm and also have different value added products, I think that's, additional outlet for people. It's been helpful for us. Social media seems to be the best marketing tool I found, along with being visible to the community. Definitely, Jenny, that is, I 100% agree. I've had people come and say, if it wasn't for your farm, I wouldn't be on social media, which is exciting. As I think that, I feel like I can always learn stuff on different ways to promote on social media. And I learn a lot of my stuff from other farms, but definitely social media and word of mouth. Let's see, for U-Pick, would you start with just one variety at first to see how it goes, or a mix? For U-Pick, I think in the beginning, I would start, with one or two varieties to let them in to pick, and really be there to educate the customers on how to pick those flowers, because I know with my lavender, people just you can show them exactly how to do it. I show somebody every single time how to cut, and they still will cut into the woody part of the plant. And then, I've heard the horror stories of people just pulling the plants out of the ground. You have things that are like a little bit trickier, I feel like, to pick, like maybe like a baby's breath or some other flowers. You could always offer just like U-Pick zinnias or sunflowers, but then you could have like fillers and buckets that they could continue to add to their bouquet, if you kind of want to just see how that goes. But I think that, like, if you're going to start out letting people pick on your farm, like sunflowers are great to pick. There are the branching sunflowers, you don't have to worry about where they're going to cut with those, but sunflowers and zinnias, things that aren't going to be high value, that you can, those more valuable flowers that you are growing on your plant on your farm, you save. Let's see, it was suggested to reach out to local realtors that will, let's see, like fresh flowers for showing. We'll try that this season. That's a great idea. Let's see, what social media platforms are people using? So let's see, what are people using out there? I use Facebook and Instagram, and I'm thinking of YouTube, but I don't. So Jenny said Facebook.
Yeah, and again, it just gets we'll get into a little bit more on customer demographics, but a lot of it has to do with who your customer is and where they
Yeah.
hang out.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
if you're shooting for an older person over 40, probably Facebook is the way to go, right?
Yeah.
And even Instagram a little bit. But if your customer base is more youthful, video is where they are these days.
Yeah.
And that means TikToks and YouTube and Instagram Reels.
Mhm. Yeah. I have one question. Did anyone else here have drought early frost that hurts CSA production? I spoke with other local farms and they said they purchased flowers to distribute as a solution, but I was wondering if anyone had other ideas. Yeah, that is the hard part with the CSA is something might happen with the growing season. So
And
They're-
it's good to
they're-
let your customers know up front that that's CSA is literally community supported agriculture. You're doing something really solid for the farmer so
Mhm.
that they can have their season no matter what the conditions. So I think when you're initially selling those subscriptions, let them know there's some risk involved on your end. Certainly, I'm going to take care of you the best I can, but this is such a great thing you're doing for local agriculture. So pat yourself on the back.
yeah,
Yeah, we definitely tried, doing that. And that's the whole point of the CSA, right? But yeah, a lot of our customers, it hurt our retention rate just because they were, unhappy with what happened. And I don't know. I guess there's not much to do about that. I don't know.
yeah. I do, I know farmers, like specifically like vegetable farmers that start out their operation with starting out initially the first couple of years with having a CSA, and then they slowly like pull back on the CSAs and figure out other markets. Because you don't have to stay in that market. And like this, especially if a CSA, I know to some farmers, it's caused a lot of stress, and they're growing all the vegetables, but then they don't have a good year. And so then next thing you know, the wife's in the kitchen making bread and like putting jellies into the basket. And if it's not gonna work, and it's gonna be that much of a hassle, it's not worth doing. Because I know those individuals, they walked away from the CSA when it came down to it.
Mhm.
Liked the idea of I use dried flowers on mini pumpkins. So yeah, that would be a great way too, to add that as an option for a CSA. Jenny says, I also comment on all local events and pages and donate to events, for example, the borough of the Duck Derby. Yeah, I just watched the talk this week, and this farmer, when they were first starting, their husband was definitely an extrovert and would go to everybody and tell them about their farm, about what they were doing. So he would anytime he'd see a TV station or radio station vehicle, they would tell their story to them and give them their business card to try to get the promotion. Because I know that's been the hardest for me, is to actually get into a news outlet, such as the TV outlet, to come in and do a thing on the farm. So I like the idea of just tracking people down and tell them about your farm.